Welcome to this discussion of organizational behavior by Dr. David Amakobe. I'm Dr. David Amakobe. I do these discussions with the experts and leaders in society about the impact individuals, groups, organization structure, and processes have on behavior within organizations and within society. Today, we are blessed to have Pastor Morgan Ikonne with us. We are going to discuss mental health amongst African immigrants in the United States. Pastor Ikonne is an expert in drug and alcohol counseling and mental health. I will not take it upon myself to introduce him because he knows himself better than me, and there's no better person to introduce himself than himself. So here we go. Pastor Ikonne, welcome to our discussion, and we are glad to have you on the program. Let's tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Dr. David Amakobe. It is a pleasure to be with you today, and I'm excited about this opportunity to speak and to share about mental health challenges among African immigrants recent within the United States of America. My name is Morgan Ikonne. I am the director of New Life Foundation Recovery Incorporated, located at 11 Parkway Cycle in Newcastle County, Delaware. And it is an honor to be Dr. David Amakobe today. New Life Foundation is a treatment facility that is providing mental health services as well as substance abuse treatment services to residents, Newcastle County, and the state of Delaware at large. We have been in operation for about 2 years now, but before starting off and being part of the process of Life Foundation, of which I am the founding director, I worked in various capacities, providing clinical counseling and mental health services to a population that is directly impacted by mental health issues. I worked as the Assistant Director of Residence and Programming with Salvation Army in Wilmington for about 5 years. And I also worked as a clinical counselor with the Delaware Department of Correction as a contractual or contract technician on the connections yet for about 3 years. And I have had previous experiences before then within the field. I do hold 2 master's degrees, one in divinity, one in psychology. I am certified advanced drug and alcohol counselor, also an MLIC master social worker within the state of Delaware. My passion when it comes to the issue of mental health stems from the fact that this is an area that affects virtually almost every family. And sometimes people may not know that they are dealing with mental health issues because of either cultural or religious beliefs that inhibit them from seeing such symptomatic indicators, expressions of mental health issues. So I'm passionate to bring about evidence-based and faith-based therapies and treatment modalities that helps to provide the necessary effective treatments, resolving these problems among its families, and much more among its people of color here in the United States. I think that's a brief introduction of who I am and what I do.
That's good. That's good. That's good to know. I can see. I can see. I was right when I said that. I cannot be able to introduce you, man. You have the experience. You have the passion, and I like to see. I like you to tell us, like, what is the connection between mental health and drug and alcohol counseling? Because how are they connected? Why would you combine those two?
The truth of the matter is that it is evidence-based that most substance abuse issues, either alcohol abuse or what we call alcohol use disorder, or substance use disorder, has what we call a co-current or undercurrent or cognitive factor of mental health. Mental health, as it is, often people think about schizophrenia as a definition of mental health. Anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar disorder, manic disorder, and all the mental health issues are comorbid factors of substance abuse, meaning that when people are unable to attend to their mental health issues and they are unable to address issues like anxiety or depression, the natural tendency to get out of those moments or that challenge is to resort to abuse of either prescribed medication, yes, psychotic, or antidepressant medications that are prescribed to them. They start abusing it, and eventually it does lead to the dependence of abuse. Or alternatively, people are dealing with depression and anxiety, and they are not attending to the mental health issues. They start consuming alcohol or start abusing illicit street drugs as a way of dealing with what they are feeling within them. So there is a linkage and a strong linkage between substance abuse and mental health, and you cannot effectively treat substance abuse that are addressing the undercurrent of mental health issues that are predisposing or perpetuating that.
We know that this country has had a war on drugs for a long time, meaning we have treated people who use drugs as criminals. Okay, we are changing. The situation is changing slowly, but at least there's still a lot of people who are in jail right now because they were doing drugs. How, after, if experts have decided that drug use is a mental mental health issue, why do you think the same experts still have people in jail who were not there because they were dealing drugs but they were taking drugs?
That's a very important topic and conversation to have. However, I'm going to approach it this way. Within mental health substance abuse issues, there are criminogenic factors that may be concurrent with drug use. Frankly speaking, we know that in the 80s and the late 70s, a lot of African Americans, even in the 90s, have been incarcerated just for selling drugs or using drugs, and they don't have any criminal record. Now, this is a question of the legal system and the impact of the lack of proper mental health diagnosis as it relates to what people do, and trying to remedy the mental health challenges by either using drugs or finding themselves in an environment where drugs are being used. However, there are also some who may be incarcerated because there are all the criminal activities that were involved in their drug use, and therefore, which is statutory laws of each state, there are provisions that incarceration should remain for rehabilitation, which is yet to be proven to be so. So some people may have been incarcerated because of the criminal activities that are intertwined with their drug abuse as well as their mental health issues. That's on the other hand. And I think that it needs to be spoken to that much needs to be done in terms of diagnosis, in terms of treatment modalities, in terms of law enforcement being trained, in terms of our criminal justice system being reformed to reflect when an individual has a mental health issue as a predisposing factor to their criminogenic tendencies, as against when the person does outrightly committing crime. Also, there is need to address that issue when it comes to the abuse. Incarcerating people because they have substance abuse without proper diagnosis and proper treatment remedies only exacerbated abuse because it does not deal with the undercurrent of their challenges. Therefore, they recidivate. When they come out, they go back, and the rate of recidivism continues because there are no proper legislative frameworks, and there are no proper mental health frameworks within the legislative framework of our governments that address these issues and separate them accordingly.
From an organizational behavior point of view, there are individuals who may have mental health issues, who may be using drugs, who may use drugs. There are individuals who may be benefiting from those individuals, or groups who benefit from those individuals who are using drugs or are have mental health issues. So, in this ecosystem, the structures and the processes there, what do you think particularly is specific to African immigrants?
I think before I speak to the specificity of the African migrant, I want to underscore the fact that one of the fundamental challenges when it comes to data that are available relating to mental health issues within African immigrants of recent uses that for a particular reason is the lumping together of every color skin individual African American. The inability to separate these groups and able to understand the necessity to approach mental health issues of African immigrants of recent descent on a separate basis and as against lumping them together as African Americans has hindered research, it has hindered the ability to actually articulate the extent to which mental health issues face us among African immigrants of recent descent. Now, to your question, within the ecosystem of those who benefit from those who are using drugs and those who are using, the traditional conception is that drug dealers are responsible and they are the primary beneficiaries. But I want to defy a little bit and demystify them. Yes, they are. But the greatest beneficiaries are the pharmaceutical industry, who ultimately manufacture a lot of the opiates and a lot of the medications that are used for treatment of psychotropic medication that are used for treatment of various mental health issues. The challenge here is also going further to look at the healthcare system within the country. And I know a lot of people may think that I'm putting up my neck there, and I don't really care so much to do so. There is a disparity when it comes to proper diagnosis of issues with people. And and therefore prescriptions are made without actually understanding individuals from a cultural and ethnic background. And there is the long thing. Once you present a systematic indicator, it means one have this. And then scripts are written. The end result is that people get hooked up to some of these psychotropics. And therefore, both the drug dealers, both the pharmaceutical companies, and also the healthcare structure of the country stands to be the primary beneficiary within this ecosystem. Those who are the users are often in the receiving end of that. They don't really have much benefit than the destruction of their lives and family and finances at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's particularly true because from these groups, the only person who seems to be having a problem, a challenge that is not being met, is the person who has mental health issue or a drug use habit. But the dealers, the manufacturers, everybody is benefiting from it. I saw there is that drug that is prescription drug that a company which I would not name was taken to court about, and they seem to imply that they wanted to be allowed to continue selling the drug so that they can pay for the damages that they had created. Talk about that. Talk about the situation whereby you are in manufacturing a drug that is harming people, but you have the audacity to ask that you continue trading in it so that you can pay for the damage. When you are trading in it to pay for the damage, and you creating more damage.
I think fundamentally what we need to address is the political structures, the economic structures, as well as the social structures within the United States of America. And fundamentally, these structures is greed. People are greedy, and I know the company you are alluding to, and the drug curtain oxycodone that they produce have been one of the most addictive pain medications that people use. And by the time they are filing for bankruptcy, they will already have had billions of dollars in family trust funds, immuning them from anybody getting any of that as part of class lawsuit action against them. Now, the fundamental premise here is that most of these pharma companies have strong political backing. Therefore, they are bound to perpetuate the wrong they're doing. Because when legislations are enacted, and those who enact them are already in the pockets of the pharma companies, the common man is on the losing end. We live in a society of law, and people are bound to abide to the laws of the land. These laws are formulated and passed by elected officers. These elected officers, most of them behold to pharma companies whose intent is driven by greed. So to say that we cannot clearly say that every pharmaceutical company is out there just to do things that will be said injurious to the consumer, but a lot of them are. The other thing is the cultural element of it, in the sense that our society has become a society that is dependent on use to survive. People take use virtually for everything. And that is also a cultural thing because of the inability of our system to help us come to grips of how to deal with life issues on life without resorting to having techniques. Like, give you an example. A young child is going through young adolescence adolescent crisis, inability to focus, inability to pay attention. And he comes to, it's like therapist or a psychologist. As against trying to find out the cultural and family dynamics, there is already a DSM-5 that have already informed me these metrics and symptoms are met. I should classify that child the ADHD or bipolar disorder. And I follow that and classify that child. And the next thing I do is to write a script. And that child is hooked to some sort of a cue, some sort of medication, maybe on the rest of his life. So there are many intricate facets of these things. That at the end of the day, perpetuate the degree, the perpetuate losing end for the common man and the consumers out there. And if there's going to be a change, there needs to be a lot of sensitization and education and the engagement of all stakeholders, beginning with parents and family members and institutions within our communities and our churches and our mosques and our religious institutions and the pharmaceutical company and all stakeholders got to recognize that there are missing links, a lot of it in what we're doing correct, and it is not really solving the problem.
You know, we live in a society of instant gratification. Parents, when a child has a problem, they want a pill that will get rid of the problem. When a kid needs lunch, they want a place that they can just get lunch in a minute. So, is the culture like you say? If you ask for behavioral change, it is hard work, okay? But if you give somebody a pill, they think it helps there. So how do you change the culture such that people or parents accept that behavioral change may be better, although taking time, than taking a pill that looks like it's helping, but it hooks the child for a long time?
I would like to state that there are situations and conditions that require behavioral modification. There are those that require what we call medication therapy. We need to be clear on that. Mm-hmm. There are situations that will require medication therapy for stabilization in order for behavioral changes to occur. Mm-hmm. And there are situations that require behavioral changes that may eventually require medication therapy for stability. Okay. However, I do agree with you that we live in a country of instant gratification. And the unfortunate thing is that has permeated into the fiber of our society. So much so that a child throws a tantrum and we pacify them by whatever they want. What we are doing is we're inoculating our ability to stand pressure, to withstand trauma, to withstand life on life's terms. And the resultant effect of that is that they evolve in life, develop in life with certain dispositions that is geared towards instant gratification. So, coming back to parental engagement, it is important that also we look at it from the beginning that most of the parents right now, especially of the existing generation, became parents when they were still kids themselves. Therefore, they were not really exposed to parental techniques and modalities that will help them navigate their kids in a meaningful way. So this is a systematic problem. However, there needs to be a lot of awareness, a lot of education, in every front, from the schools to the churches, to the religious institutions, even in the doctor's office. I would propose that it is not unethical if the doctor can be sound ethical advice to a parent when he or she finds out that the predisposing factor to the challenge before him or her is a behavioral issue, and to have a sit down and refer parents to experts and places that they can get behavioral intervention that will both help them and their kids. And to know that it is not wrong to seek for help. Because a lot of people think that seeking for help is a sign of weakness. Therefore, they recoil to themselves and begin to try to administer remedies that they don't have the expertise in. And that becomes quite catastrophic.
Talking about behavioral change and behavior, we have a culture where we teach our kids that everybody wins. Okay, in a society, so the pressure in life give we meet challenges in life where not everybody wins. But we make our kids believe that in classroom everybody wins. How does that affect their mental health when they grow up, when they discover that not everybody gets a merit badge?
I think, Dr. Makobe, you rightly hit the nail at its head. One of the things our educational system has failed to do is to teach people about losses, about life. The structure of education, the structure of expectation is dealt within the framework that you've got to succeed at all costs. That failure is a wrong thing. Failure is not a wrong. Therefore, from the very get-go, we tend to send some signals into the formative stages of our children's development and their brain conceptions of life, that winning is all that matters in life. Now, that is a fallacy. The result of that and the impact of that is that we have a generation that are unable to withstand losing energy. They are unable to withstand things not working out their way. They're unable to withstand pressure, relations. They're unable to look at things and say, well, I'll try again another day. I'll come back another day. They tend to find their validation. They tend to find their identity in what they consider to be successes in life. Therefore, they are wired to be anti-resistant, anti-seemingly failure. And that is not a remedy that can lead to anything good, but to trauma, stress, to depression, to anxiety, sometimes to suicidal ideations and actual execution of that ideation. So we need to go back to parenting. We need to go back to speaking truth to our children. And we need to do that modeling in our own lives. We need to do that as parents, that when we don't succeed, we will take ownership and tell our kids it is okay. Daddy couldn't make it today. The contract didn't come to, but I'm going to see you try. You know, when we begin to teach, not just by verbal expressive teaching, but by behavioral modification teaching, it will make more sense to our children. Secondly, when we begin to allow our children to strive within their natural capacity, as against setting a bar of expectation for them, and as against pushing them to the limit and to the brink because we want them to be like any other child. When we begin to stop doing that, we are actually helping our children to grow naturally. And also when we begin to identify and celebrate our children when they do not succeed, that they may want to succeed or we may want them to succeed, it boosts us their self-esteem and self-worth, and therefore they are learning that in life sometimes things doesn't just work. And that it doesn't doesn't work doesn't mean you wouldn't try on it again.
That's really good, Pastor Morgan, because we sort of don't it doesn't seem like we are connecting our children, or people are not connecting to reality when we think that everybody in every situation everybody wins, because no, it doesn't work that way. And another thing, we have have a situation whereby people are not connected with their emotions. They don't know how they feel, or they cannot verbalize how they feel, and they cannot empathize with other people because they just can't get that emotion in. How do you think that the disconnection from our emotions affects our mental health?
I think this is a very important question, and I will say that there are layers to that. I'm going to speak to our generation, and I'll make a progress towards the generation that we are currently dealing with right now. The challenge of disassociation and disattachment from our emotions, especially within the masculine gender identity, stems from parental upbringing. When we were told that men do not cry, men do not show emotion. When we were told manners, you can demand them not to show your emotion. The residual effect of that is that we grew up lacking empathy and lacking the ability to trust. Our emotions are not given. God himself expresses emotion. For those of us who espouse Christianity, throughout the scriptures we see God expressing emotions of anger, rage, of love, of empathy, and all of that. So we are an emotional being. So when we cannot connect our emotions because of certain cultural and gender identities, we are missing out on a holistic life. And the impact of that is that we tend to our children's hands. A client was in my office just some minutes ago, and we are addressing the issue of his anger and rage. And come to discover that it stems from a teaching that his father taught him quite early in life. If anybody gets to your face, don't be the one to walk away. Fight to the finish. Show who you are. And he has seen himself getting to the point of blacking out in rage, trying to almost choke somebody's death out of that parental heat, because that is what the father was taught by his own father. So when we are emotionally disconnected, we are also unable to process our mental health issues. Because part of our emotional life is that it allows us to truly stay true to how we are feeling, why we are feeling that way, and what we can do about it. And those are the fundamental questions of any therapist. How are you feeling today? You know why you're feeling like that, and what can be done about it. So when we inoculate our emotions, we are unable to identify, even when we have mental health issues, because we are unable to process it to discharge. And the resultant therapy is that we carry a lot of baggages mentally that finds expression in areas and in ways that have become very, very devastating for us, for our family and for our community.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pastor Morgan. I think that we need to be able to teach ourselves and teach our children to be in contact with their emotions instead of just cognitive or logical intelligence. The ability to add 1 and 2 and 3 and do logic, but if you cannot be in touch with yourself or with the other person whom you are dealing with, I think that disconnect creates a lot of emotional dissidence. So it makes it almost impossible to be to be stable mentally, I think. The other we haven't really talked about the group that we are thinking about, the recent African immigrants in the United States. You know, the processes and the structures of the United States, they are very different from the processes and the structures in Africa. How does that disconnect? And also, you have the privilege of living in a house where some of the people in your house and my house were brought up in Africa without structures, and some of them in the house are growing up with this structure. How that the differences in those structures and processes in a family like that and in society affect people's mental health?
I think to speak truth, speak truth to this question, African migrants of recent descent, foremost, we need to understand that they constitute about 5% of the United States population. And frankly speaking, most of them, or majority, 95, 98%, do not acknowledge data-wise the need for a sound mental health output to life. There is a lot of dismissal with the issue of mental health for several reasons, and hopefully time will allow us to get to that. And for those of us who were born in Africa and migrated to the United States, we were raised in a culture and in an environment where mental health issues were not a subject of discussion. You didn't have time actually to fully process the mental health state, complex of the emotional state. Therefore, we come to a country where the demand on life and the expectation of life are quite different. And we have this dualistic conflict or dualistic challenge, because we have a cultural experience that are stemming from our upbringing in Africa, and we have a culture and experiences that are constantly presenting itself to us while we are trying to integrate and acculturalize into the mainstream of America. So that constitutes a whole lot of complications. But for our children who are either brought here when they were kids or who were born here, it's a different thing. They understand and they tend to lean towards more to the American culture and the American system. But for those of us who were born in Africa, there is a wide gap in our conceptualization of mental health issues. There is a wide gap in our articulation of when we need to address mental health issues. There is an undeniable, delusional way of thinking that the mental health issue is not real. It is real, and I want to say that emphatically. It is real. Frankly speaking, a lot of people who migrate to the United States of America are migrating because of the conflicts that they are running away from. Wars, people coming from the Congo, Liberia, or even in Nigeria, northern part of Nigeria, Somalians, Eritreans, and all that. Most of them migrated out because of conflict. Therefore, they were already predisposed to fears and all that, and depression and anxiety. But because that is not spoken to be a realistic challenge, they never considered it to be even existent. And they come to a country where they're trying to fit in, and the pressure, the stress, by adjusting and assimilation intensifies that. And they tend to completely ignore it and find some transcendental experiences as a way of relating to it. Mostly, two most transcendental experiences that African migrants tend to solve their mental one is spirituality or religiosity. The other, most of the time, is alcohol. And both needs to be spoken to as to the dangers inherent in it and the impact that it has on family life and on the mental health life.
That's really correct, because a lot of African immigrants are in the health sector right now. And with the COVID-19 going on, they are going through a lot of emotional and mental health issues, but they don't understand it. They can't conceptualize that seeing so much carnage at work affects them. How do you broach that subject? How do you broach the subject that you are a senior nurse, you are a senior doctor, you are wearing PPE, you are taking all precautions, physical precautions, you are not affected by the COVID, but you are affected mentally, psychologically. How can you be able to tell these professional African immigrants working in the healthcare system that they need help? They need to take a break and seek help.
I think first we need to address the issue of understanding of trauma. Most African migrants of recent descent have inoculated their traumas. They dismiss it. They accept it to be part of life. You hear them say, well, it's normal. These things will come to pass. The dismissal of trauma in itself is wrong. So foremost is to begin an aggressive, intentional education and awareness that trauma exists. That when you are a nurse, a doctor, dealing with the COVID, and you're seeing patients die and die and die and die and die, it has a traumatic impact on you. You're vicariously traumatized, whether you want to accept it or not. You're fatigued, you're stressed, you are consuming and absorbing a lot of emotion, into your system. And it is okay to say, I feel traumatized. It does not constitute to weakness. It does not constitute to lack of faith. Because as I stated earlier, the spiritualization and the religiosity of African immigrants tends to put us in the frame where we think that the acknowledgement and the recognition of our trauma is lack of faith. It is not. Christ himself expressed and he expressed his trauma. He says, my soul is grieved and weary to the point of death. That was his acknowledgement of his trauma, that he was traumatized by the fact of what he was about to experience at the cross, and he could verbalize that. So it is important that we begin by the demystification of trauma and the sensitization that trauma is real and that trauma can be anything and it is individualistic. You don't have to have been to Iraq for you to say you have trauma. Seeing people die at your watch is traumatic, and it's okay to accept that. Number two is that there is need for African immigrants to understand that the pursuit of money to the detriment of their health does not, at the end of the day, suffice. Because most of them want to clock in and clock in and clock in and clock in and walk long shifts. But at the end of the day, there is a bottom line they're looking. Now, the challenge with that is that there comes a time within this society when you are not able to walk. And every trauma that has so impeded your system, I don't find expression. And at such time, it becomes an incurable illness. People develop health treatment does not translate that you are schizophrenic. Because back home when you hear mental health, the first conception is that the person is mad. He has some madness going on there. Mental health has nothing to do with madness. It is health, but mentally. It is health, but mentally. As much as you attend to your physical health, so also you need to attend to your mental health and your emotional health, as well as your spiritual health. So we cannot be people who attend to our physical health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, but when it comes to mental health, we tend to stigmatize it. So we got to do a lot of education in removing the stigma that is associated to seeking mental health treatment and sitting down with a psychologist or a psychiatrist to discuss your mental health state and to understand what can be done to avoid a mental health breakdown or to treat existing mental health issues that may not have been noticed to be there.
Yeah, that's good. You know, in an ecosystem or in a society, any change of either the individual or the groups or the structure or the process will change the behavior in that organization. So, how do we ensure that the structures adjust to the structures and processes in the United States, particularly, let's say in Delaware, for example, adjust for these individuals and for these groups who are providing value, but because of culture or because of upbringing, they are not fitting squarely in the groups that were originally there, so that the structures can adjust and be able to take care of them. Because although we may ask the individuals to adjust, but the structures and the processes need to adjust too.
I think I agree with you that there is a lot of structural adjustment that needs to be done. I would begin by suggesting that it is important that there be legislation that mandates hospitals, let's say hospitals, for example, to provide paid mental health leave or paid mental health treatment for their providers and especially African migrants who in the state of Delaware seems one of the great populations that work within a hospital system. If there are legislation that enforces that companies and hospitals pay people periodically or quarterly or as we do annually go for mental health treatments, mental health examination as prerequisites of employment and continuity of employment, I think it's going to help. That is number one. Number two is that a lot of the African migrants belong to a lot of cultural or community organization or their national organization. I know in the state of Delaware there is an association of Nigerians and Kenyans and all that. Within these associations, I think that it's important that the leadership begins to think about not just coming together to give them a trauma, but also to bring in experts who can give some sort of awareness and education and sensitization to the need of mental health. We think communally. That is one thing about African migrants. We tend to pool within the community. So if there are shifts in the communal conversations about mental health, it is ultimately going to improve the look, the disposition that African migrants have towards mental health issues. The other thing that African migrants of recent descent tends to be very spiritual. Therefore, the pastors and the churches that they attend needs to take it upon themselves to demystify that mental health issues are not demonic in nature, they are not schizophrenic in nature, they should not be stigmatized, but that they are part of health, and therefore encouraging their members to attend to the mental health issue. I think if we approach it from these angles, the structures will begin to be done, which is accommodative of it. But ultimately, also, is that the African immigrants must begin to find ways to have a voice. To have a voice in the sense of participation and in the sense of being involved in policy and decision making within the institution where they function at the highest levels. Because when you do not have a voice, others make policies for you, and you abide by it.
Thank you very much, Pastor Morgan. I think we are completely out of time. This is a very interesting discussion. We'll have you again. We'll have you again come talk about so that we can continue the discussion. I think that we need to, like, this is a beginning so that we can be able to educate the recent African immigrants in the United States about their need for mental health care, self-care, and also their need to be closer to themselves emotionally. Thank you very much. It was very nice talking to you today. We will invite you again. Hope you'll be able to come back and continue the discussion. And to our viewers, thank you for being with us today. We will see you